Greetings, this is Scott Jordan from PI. I'm here today to talk with you about three essential themes, three things that we all must do together to succeed as the current photonics wave rises and crests. The first thing to understand about photonics today is that it's no longer about just the data center. Now, data center interconnects were the original big market for silicon photonics, and it remains the dominant application field for silicon photonics. But that is changing rapidly as we start to see commercialization of things such as optical biosensors, wearable technologies, LIDAR on a chip, quantum computing, photonic computing, active optical cables. All of these things need to be assembled, they need to be manufactured, they need to be tested. And this is a big challenge for the industry because the numbers involved are very big. Look at what that means. If you consider, for example, Intel. Intel is one of the major players in optical interconnects for data centers, and it's one of many. And you can see that they've achieved magnificent productivity, 2 million units per year. Absolutely fantastic accomplishment. But if you compare that to some of these other numbers that we're starting to see forecast for these new application fields, well, we as an industry have a problem. Hundreds of millions of devices are being forecast for things such as wearables and LIDAR and optical cables and things of that sort. These things need to be manufactured, they need to be tested, and then they need to be assembled. This is a big job. The industry has some work to do. So we started talking about this a few months ago. If you check out the article, it was in Photonics magazine in April 2022. EPIC, the European Photonics Industry Consortium, has a periodic insights column. And as you can see, in April, it was all about this. We must confront the dangers of success. We must find ways of keeping pace with the demand for these devices. Similarly, in June of this year, the cover article in Photonic Spectra magazine was all about this challenge, the challenge of new applications with immense demand and what the industry must do to accommodate this demand. So this QR code that you see on the screen will take you directly to that article. So feel free to take a picture and navigate directly to it because there are some important points being made. So those three themes, those three necessary steps that we as an industry must together adopt. The first, automation. Second, innovation. And third, cooperation. These three themes will carry us into the future. Let's talk about automation. So the first thing to understand is that the photonics industry is undergoing a transformation. That the same transformation that we saw 35, 40 years ago in the semiconductor industry. This wonderful video is from the Chip History Museum. And you can see this is an Intel fab back in the mid-1980s. Chances are your first IBM PC, or maybe your father's first IBM PC, was manufactured, or its CPU was manufactured in this facility. And you can see lots of manual operations, lots of custom equipment. Now, doesn't that sound familiar? That's exactly what we're confronting in the photonics market today. And that these manual processes were eventually eliminated. They're replaced by automation, by an ecosystem of tool manufacturers. Today, you can build a semiconductor fab just by writing purchase orders. But that wasn't the case back in the 1980s when this ecosystem of tool makers was just getting started. Now, there are multiple studies, and anybody who has worked with photonic devices will understand what this slide is saying. Alignment is painful. Alignment, until recently, has been painfully costly. Now, this is something that we have addressed, and it's important because alignment is something that must be repeated multiple times throughout the manufacturing cycle of the silicon photonic device. First, it starts at the wafer. The wafer must be probed. The chips on the wafer must be validated, characterized, and increasingly binned, shall we say, ranked in order of performance so that they can be sold at different price points. It's a tradition in the semiconductor industry, and it has been coming to silicon photonics. But this repetitive, painful cost of alignment, since it needs to be repeated so many times, and since traditionally it has taken so much time to accomplish, well, that adds up to about 80% of the cost of a silicon photonic device. This is what we have attempted to address in the past several years. Let's take a look at that. What we have achieved is a robust, flexible alignment capability that can perform more than one alignment at a time. So in other words, it can do a lock-on on a transverse alignment of a channel in an array device and simultaneously perform the angular alignments and the gap setting alignment, and have all this happening in one step instead of a lengthy sequential series of looping processes. So it's much faster. It's about 100 times faster. So that an alignment that traditionally would take maybe 2 minutes to do for an array device, it now takes about 1 second. So that's been our contribution to the field. It reduces the pressure to find ways of doing passive alignment, for example, where parts must be machined to sub-micron tolerances in order for them to snap together like little optical Legos. That is not a cheap thing either. And by reducing the cost and the pain of active alignment, we have reduced the pressure on the industry to find other ways of doing things. Capability of performing multiple alignments simultaneously is built in across our product line now. So you have our hexapod micro robots, which have 6 degrees of freedom and an ability to rotate about any point in space, which is very useful for all kinds of optical alignments and assemblies. You have our nano positioners, which are fast and offer resolutions down in the sub-nanometer region. You have stacks of stages driven by ACS controls, very flexible, long travel, truly industrial applications with mechanical bearings or air bearings. All of these share this functionality and can work together to get the job done quickly, 100 times faster than any other approach. Oh, by the way, we recently introduced a new capability that is getting some interest as well. And this is an ability to ride the beam down when you're inserting one part into another. So think about this. If you have an inset assembly where some element must be inserted into another one, and you want to do so without touching the sides, perhaps this is a way of doing that. We can maintain a transverse lock as you perform a Z insertion and maintain the proper angles as well using this parallel alignment technology. So this is a very powerful way to assemble some of these new photonic devices that we're talking about. So let's talk about that second item, innovation. One of my favorite topics. I'd like to throw a spotlight on some innovative players in the industry. So let's take a look at that. Company that I would like to spotlight is a brilliant young company called Terramount. Now, Terramount has developed a unique approach to passive alignment. It utilizes a glass interposer, and the optical configuration greatly reduces the sensitivity of transverse alignment. So this is a very nice approach, very clever way of performing certain packaging operations for certain photonic devices. So that's why I like to spotlight them. They're solving a problem. And some people say, well, why are you spotlighting this if it doesn't need active alignment? Well, it's a solution. It's something that benefits the industry. Therefore, we want you to know about it because this industry is all about innovation, cooperation, partnership, and here's an example of something that can really help in some applications. Here's another example of innovation at work. This is a platform that has been developed by Philips. It's being implemented at MedFab, which is a consortium in the Netherlands. I'll have more to say about MedFab in a few minutes. But this is, well, here it is. It's a platform that can be built into a catheter to provide extremely high data rates. So you can build sensors and things that we can't even imagine today and actually insert these into patients to perform monitoring or to drive instrumentation of various sorts. The possibilities are literally limitless for something of this sort, and it's all enabled by silicon photonics. And again, these devices need to be manufactured, they need to be tested, they need to be assembled, and so again, you see the challenge. So what about that third element? We talked about automation, we talked about innovation. Let's talk about cooperation. First, our approach has been to find those pioneers in each market and work with them to resolve the issues and make a successful entry into the marketplace. So one of them, a good example, is FormFactor. FormFactor started working with us over 6 years ago to build the world's first fast silicon photonic prober, and they've achieved really great things and helped drive them to Fortune 100's list of fastest growing companies. And they've taken full advantage of the parallel capabilities of PI's alignment technology. On the assembly side, there's Ediplan. Ediplan recently purchased Tegema, which made a tool that is 10 times faster than anything else on the marketplace because they also take full advantage of the parallel alignment capability of PI's alignment micro robots. So these two companies sort of bookend the process for manufacturing silicon photonic devices, starting at the wafer level, ending up with final assembly. Just a couple of examples, there are plenty more. Across the field of tool makers and contract manufacturers and systems integrators, there are qualified companies who are eager to work with you to solve your problems, work with us to help solve your problems for you, and to help us together meet the challenge of brand new applications and exponentiating demand. And there's another thing. One thing that we have done is we have opened up a space for working with customers in Silicon Valley. Take a look. Welcome to PI's Silicon Valley Technology Center. Here we address what's possible in the world of photonics today. We have a showroom with many examples of the equipment that we make. And this is the place where we have a team that can work directly with customers to solve advanced problems involving ultra-precision motion and photonic alignment. I briefly mentioned contract manufacturers. These have been and will remain a very important resource for meeting this grand challenge that's confronting the photonics industry today. There are several that I would like to spotlight here. Benchmark Electronics, for example, set up a magnificent facility in the Phoenix, Arizona area for building photonic devices and tackling especially tough packaging challenges. Integra Technologies is another group here in Silicon Valley that is known for their quick, responsive approach to packaging devices. OEIC is a very broad company in Vietnam that is specifically focused on manufacturing active optical cables, which, as you saw from one of my first slides, is a field that is expected to have very, very high demand. Each of these are companies with expertise and willingness to work with customers and capacity. In Europe, in particular, there are some resources. There's actually global resources, but these are built on the foundation of the European Union's approach to building a photonics manufacturing infrastructure. This goes back to 2013, almost a decade ago, when it established a series of pilot lines and consortia addressing specific challenges in the marketplace. Of these global European resources is the Podium Consortium. This is a group of several companies, including PI, each of which brings specific expertise to the question of packaging and assembly of photonic devices. So this provides a critical mass of expertise and provides access to equipment and to people who know how to solve the problems of photonics packaging. So this is great for companies that are devising new types of photonic devices, photonic assemblies, and are wondering what would the best practices be for assembling these devices. Companies involved in Podium include PI, obviously, and also CITC, which specializes in packaging technologies, FIX, which is a packaging foundry for photonic ICs. Isn't that an interesting concept? And then Etiplan, which makes these scalable automation assembly toolings, and FineTech, which makes exceptional submicron die bonding equipment. All of these are part of the solution, and we work together to develop solutions and develop approaches that are scalable and economically feasible for its clients. So if you are facing a challenge, this is a group that you can call up and work with them on a confidential basis to develop an optimized assembly production process. Now, I mentioned MedFab earlier. This is another of the consortia. In this case, one of the dominant members is Philips. This is the first European pilot line for medical diagnostic devices built on silicon photonics. So this is another example. Let me show you some of the people involved in this. Very impressive roster of solutions providers. And each of these is a participant in the MedFab pilot line, the MedFab consortium. And so this is an example of the kind of partnership, collaboration that is going to carry this industry forward. So let's wrap it up. We have a challenge. The challenge is that this industry must scale its productivity by 3 orders of magnitude in the next few years. It's coming, it's happening as we speak. And the overarching theme, I think, is that we as an industry need to pursue those 3 themes of automation, innovation, and cooperation. And we're here to help. We went through this with the semiconductor industry 50 years ago. We enabled that industry and have been doing so since its infancy. Genomics automation is another example where PI is deeply embedded. We enable that industry from its infancy as well. In silicon photonics, we've been doing this for quite a few years now, and we hope one day to look back and say, we helped. Let us help you. Give us a call. Here's my contact information. I think for this webinar, we will have a question and answer session as well. So we're here to help. In particular, if you are curious about this amazing technology of performing multiple alignments in parallel, doing them simultaneously so the whole process is 100 times faster, please, now's the time to ask. Many thanks.